Graduated from Mullen High School in Denver, Colorado in 1994. Had a good high school career at the time. Threw for just over 10,000 yards, and it had broken Todd Marinovich's all-time high school passing record. And so I was recruited by a lot of schools around the country. I could have gone to the Ivy League, could have gone to the Naval Academy, to West Point, to the Air Force Academy, Stanford, Notre Dame. But I chose to go to the University of Miami and pursue my dreams to be a quarterback at Quarterback U, and then ultimately a quarterback in the NFL. I chose there because I thought I had an opportunity to be considered for a Heisman Trophy, win a national championship, and be a first-round draft pick. It was my goals were set pretty low, but that was the mindset. That was where most of us come from when we're athletes at a high level. So went to the University of Miami, played 3 years, had a good career, and then I wasn't really recognized by the NFL. I was invited to one Senior Bowl game, and I turned it down for reasons unbeknownst to me still, but went to the Combine, experienced that. It was an amazing experience, but ultimately wasn't drafted or signed. So I went to the Arena League, and then I was picked up out of the Arena League to go to NFL Europe to go play with the Scottish Claymores. And then I had a trip up to Canada with the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. And then I was drafted to play for the Las Vegas Outlaws in the XFL, which ultimately I did, played the season for them. After that, I went back to Europe for one stint in the French Federation of American Football, which was a glorified French softball league, but we played football. 2 Americans came over, and we had they gave us a flat and a car and some spending money, and all the other guys were just French guys from the town there in Cannes. So I lived on the Mediterranean, and I learned to call plays in French, which was a very extraordinary experience that does me no good now, except in these situations when I can tell the story. That was it. After that, I went to law school, graduated in 2005 from the University of Miami School of Law, and moved back to my hometown in 2006. I've got a wife and 2 kids, and one on the way. High school is a pretty focused environment. Where I graduated at Mullen is not a big student body. Really focused on academics. It was really go to class, go to practice, and go home. There wasn't a lot of distraction. As you get into broader universes of spheres of influence, if you will, when you go from a high school environment like that, that's pretty strict and not too many distractions, where you might have 5,000 people at your biggest game, to a school like the University of Miami, where you're dealing with press conferences every week, and you not only have the Miami Herald, but you got the New York Times, the LA Times, and this was at the inception and the beginning of the internet, so you had a few of the internet issues happening. You got your school paper, and every local news channel is set up in a room. And you go to now having to have a public persona, and the words that you say have broad effect, and they affect different people different ways. Now everybody starts to form an opinion about you, and then you're competing at a highest level with a lot of people's eyes on you. Now you're being talked about in national publications and magazines, and now you're being rated by these magazines. And ultimately there's a tremendous amount more pressure after you get out of high school and you get into college, and especially if you're a highly touted guy, as I was. That is a big difference. And then playing in front of 85,000 people, and every game felt like it was every game felt like it meant something. It meant a huge amount, not only to you and your teammates, but to this broader community. And you also were thinking about every time you went onto the field that you were having an opportunity to audition for your ultimate goal, which was to get to the National Football League. And so there was the pressure you put on yourself, the pressure others put on you, that ultimately is the pressure you put on yourself. But that was the major difference. And then really, as I moved into the different levels, now you're doing it to make a living. Now it's now the kind of naive dreams that that you might have, the identity that you kind of build up as I'm a football player and quarterback, the real world after you're out there hustling between arena and Canada and the XFL, trying to make a dollar and still trying to audition even though you've got all these other guys coming up. That was another extraordinary amount of pressure, and you start to lose a little bit of that focus and a little bit of that faith in that all of this is going to work out in the end, and you're still going to be under center for an NFL football team. So very focused, lack of distraction in high school, not really having to do too much outside of what you had to do with academics and football, to be thrown into a situation where now you have all of the media attention and all of the issues, and now you're on a much grander scale and the pressure's much higher, and then you get into a real world having to make a living. Those are the three major differences, I think, between all those stages. You have to give yourself almost completely over to your craft in order to be the best at what you do. But at the same time, if you don't have the balance in your life that this is a fleeting at best situation. If you hit the lottery and your team does well enough, you have the physical skill, the mental capability, and the timing to be in a position where one of these 32 teams who already have 3 quarterbacks on their roster determine that you're a guy that should come in. I mean, if you're one of 5, that 40 million start and 5 end up at the end of that's great. I'm talking about the other 39 million plus. Find that balance and find that passion outside of athletics. I mean, find it, no matter what it is. And know that that's going to be the thing that will be there for you. And I think it's more of an internal issue. Find something inside that will provide that direction for your life, and not always something that you're trying to achieve or strive for in a very difficult platform. The barrier to entry is just, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good you might be. Your injuries, guys don't like you, politics, all those things work into these analysis. And my advice would be, think about your future beyond athletics, and think about right now beyond athletics. What is it that gives you your sense of self-worth? And don't let it be your ability to play something. That's great, but don't let that be the thing. When I was signed at the University of Miami, they also signed another quarterback out of California, kid who was bigger, faster, stronger than I was. And we sat out, and I had to compete against this every day. And looking over my shoulder for 4 years was a major challenge, in having to manage that, because I was never given the clear mandate, you're the guy, don't worry about this guy over here. Hey, if you're not playing well, we got a great backup here, so just keep that in mind. I think the challenge of always having that pressure was an early challenge that I overcame, but I think the biggest challenge was just as I've touched on. It's the understanding and not just paying lip service to, because you hear other people say it. Hey, you want to be defined by more than just your sport. That's really easy to say, but in order to find that other passion in your life, that internal piece that's going to drive you, no matter what happens externally, to find what's truly important and that's worthy about yourself, that is the biggest challenge. And I think that's one that I still face, and I work every day to overcome. We're playing Syracuse in '96. Donovan McNabb is the other guy, the other quarterback. So we had played Virginia Tech, and I had an unbelievable first half against these guys. Come out in the third quarter, I was probably feeling as good as I ever had in the position, running the offense. I had Edgerrin James in the backfield. I had 2 first-round draft picks at X and Z, and we were going to beat Virginia Tech. And if we beat them,
And then we go on to beat Syracuse. We're in the Orange Bowl in the big deal, and so I'm feeling pretty good. Well, backup comes in after I break my ankle, and he hits the Virginia Tech defensive back between the 2 and the 1, and the guy runs it all the way back. They beat us. The next week, backup starts because I've got a broken ankle, and he just plays lights out against Boston College. Lights out. And he is named Big East Player of the Week. And so the next week, I'm like, okay, I got to play. So with the broken ankle, I go in and I said, I'm going to play. So I practice all week, go in against Syracuse, and throw a couple of early touchdown passes. And it's 14-10, and we're driving again. We're down about the 30-yard line. And I'm scrambling, and I'm having a heck of a day. And I turn, and it's like a 28 power toss, sweep, whatever we called it back then. And it's a handoff to Edgerrin James. And so I hand the ball off at about the 20-yard line, and I carry out my fake, and I end up on the other side of the field on about the 20 watching Edgerrin. And Edgerrin gets into the line, and he dances a little bit, then he pops outside, and he's gaining yards. He's down to the 15, to the 12, and he gets popped. And right when he gets popped, the ball comes out. Now, at that moment, I just turned and started running. The ball popped out, hit the ground, and a guy named Ron Gadsden for Syracuse picked it up. And he's got nothing but a straight line to the goal line. And I don't know if I've been in the zone a few times, but I've never been in the zone like this. There was no thought. There was no, I just turned and ran. And I got to the other side of the field, and at about the 15-yard line, the other 15-yard line, I ran into the dude. And when I got to him, I wrapped him up and flipped him over. So my greatest sports moment as a quarterback was making a tackle on a fumble that Edgerrin, and this is the thing that bothers me. When I go back and we tell that story, because it was a big deal, all the coaches, yeah, Clem, you remember you threw that pick and you ran? No, it wasn't a pick. Edge fumbled. I tackled the guy who had no business tackling. This is a defensive back from Syracuse. I've never run under a 4.7 in my life. But I ran faster than that guy that day on that moment and caught him. And we ended up winning that game by 4 points. It was the difference. It was the difference in the ball game, and it just showed how somebody never giving up, making effort all the time, 100%, never letting the focus go, can really make the difference in a game. And we beat Donovan McNabb, and I was the Big East Player of the Week that week. So I even showed up my backup. It is the guiding principle that gives you the direction in your life, and for me, it has been the thing that no matter what happens, it's a reflection of who you are. My children are baptized. They're both going to be, have their first communion. They'll both be confirmed. We were married in the Catholic Church, and though, our experiences, my wife and I, went to the same parish when we were kids. And I did not like going to Sunday school. I wanted to watch football. And I got away with that every once in a while, but for the most part, I appreciate more of the times that it was suggested more strongly that I go. Because that foundation of faith gives you the direction so that you don't get lost. You don't get lost because you find yourself without a job to play quarterback. Or you find yourself in a position where things aren't going as well as you'd hope them to, or you find yourself, or things are going great, and you know that ultimately you don't want to let that get ahead of you either, and that you just have that straight foundation and critical mass in your own life and in your faith. It just makes things a special place. It makes home special. It makes days special. It makes Christmas special. It makes things, it gives things their meaning. And I think that's that is why we do what we do, because it has meaning. And if it didn't have meaning, this would be a pretty lonely place. First of all, everything is instant. It doesn't matter what it is. These kids' lives are scrutinized more than our lives ever were. They're scrutinized by their peers much more. I think social media has created a situation where, people can look into your life and see things that you probably at the moment don't want them to see, nor in the future do you want them to see. The boundaries, personal boundaries, aren't there anymore. And it's something that now, because there's no history of this, there's no playbook for it. So what you have to do, and what I hope our kids are doing as they walk through life in this kind of very public way, we're always under surveillance. We're always keeping in touch with others on a consistent basis. And I find myself, I'd much rather, if I'm being lazy about it and I'm not trying to form relationships, I'm going to fire off a couple of texts to a few people, and that'll be, oh no, I texted that guy last week, we're good. Well, in some ways I think our kids are faced with having this social media suggestion that means you're more connected, but in reality between people you're less connected. That's a tough place to be. And especially our student athletes. I look at Bryce Harper, and that guy, I remember watching YouTube 5 years ago and watching that dude hit home runs. He was like 15. And his whole mythos, his brand, if you will, was born on YouTube. It wasn't done anywhere else. His fame and really probably the fact that he's a Washington National playing at 19 was due to YouTube and to some of the exposure that he was able to generate for himself. And so I think athletes now have this sense that they have to go do that. I have to go build myself an image and a profile, and that's going to be the thing that gets me to the next level. So many parents approach me about, well, I need one-on-one coaching, and I need some marketing film, and I need all your relationships so that my kid is going to, and really it goes back to, and there's a lot of people making money off of that right now. But it goes back to this: if you can play and you compete, people are going to give you a shot. It doesn't matter about your marketing film or your some of these other things that don't matter. And I think that the kids now are inundated with it. When we were coming up, it was camps. How many camps can you get to? Well, now you got camps and combines, and who's your personal coach, and what's the website that you use to market yourself, and who knows who, and it's just an amazing showcases. I mean, I had never heard the word, especially relative to quarterbacks. And now Steve Clarkson out in California has quarterback showcases, brings kids in from all over the country. And people believe that if they're in that, they're going to have a greater ability to be recruited at the highest levels. Now, I don't know if it's because of Steve and his showcase, or it's because of the fact that you played 10 games at the high school level and you had 70% completion percentage, you threw 28 touchdowns and 4 picks. I think it's that. But the focus can get muddled. And so there's just so much more they have to deal with. And it's unfortunate. It should be about competition. But I think that the pressure, the scrutiny, and I don't envy them that. I feel it now too, more than I ever did, even in my role. So, different world.